Friends, as I am here worshiping with you today, I am struck by how the world has changed since I last led worship for you all in March. It's now officially been over a month since the state of Illinois officially issued their stay-at-home order, and things feel a lot different since then. We've been practicing social distancing for a while now, and have been staying away from each other as much as possible. However, also in this time of physical distancing, we're finding new ways to connect socially as a community. For me, phone calls, video chats, and text messages have all kept me connected with my friends and family on a more regular basis than before we were quarantined. In this time of quarantine, being connected while physically distant begs the question, what does it really mean to be in community? I found some unexpected inspiration on this topic from the Book of Ruth in the Bible, one of our sources as Unitarian Universalists. You may have heard at least part of the Book of Ruth before, because it is a passage that's often quoted in weddings. It goes like this: "Do not press me to leave you or to turn back from following you. Where you go, I will go. Where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God." Now, despite this being used frequently in weddings, it's not actually a romantic passage, but rather is the story of two women, Naomi and Ruth, and their promise to be there for one another through difficult times. Naomi was a woman who lived in the city of Moab with her two daughters-in-law, Ruth and Orpah, after their husbands died. The three women bonded during this time of grief and loss and became their own tight-knit family. However, during these biblical times, three widowed women living together came with hardships. Finding work was difficult, as was finding a new husband to bring them financial and social safety. Eventually, Naomi realized that as a widow of her age, she was too old to remarry, and encouraged Ruth and Orpah to return to their families for a better life. Orpah left with great sadness, because she knew that life was going to be very difficult for Naomi alone. Ruth, however, decided to stay. She recognized that together, they are community, a family. Ruth saw that in that moment, Naomi needed someone to go on this journey with her, to do the work in the fields, and someone to care for her. This is where Ruth declared that she will stay with Naomi. "Do not press me to leave you or turn back from following you. Where you go, I will go." Naomi recognized that as much as she wanted to do this alone, she needed the help of her daughter-in-law. She accepted Ruth's offer, and the two of them traveled to their new home together. This story is a beautiful testament to those we choose to be in community with. In this story, Ruth saw that Naomi needed a companion on her journey, and Naomi accepted this help. Throughout our own lives, there are times when we, like Ruth, and others when we are like Naomi. Where part of being in community means that there will be times where we need to care for others, and times when we are the ones who need to be cared for. In times like these, when crisis is around us, we feel an increased need to support one another. As humans, we often feel the inherent desire to react to the situation at hand, to do something positive, and engage in activities that give us a sense of control to make the best outcome possible. Things like checking in on people, delivering some groceries, or even sewing cloth masks for those in need. They also highlight something that has been there and important all along. We need each other, and sometimes we need help. It's easy to think that in order to help someone, we have to do something huge, something that will change a person's life in a big, grandiose way. But often, help can come from an action as simple as seeing where someone is at, reaching out, and going along on their journey for a time. In a pre-pandemic world, a 4-year-old named Nora made a difference in someone's life just by seeing them and saying hello. Nora and her mom Tara were at the supermarket together on a very special day, Nora's birthday. They turned a corner into an aisle, Nora in her favorite purple birthday dress, and saw a man in his 80s, looking both angry and sad. Nora saw him and said, "Hello, old person. Today is my birthday." The man looked around, saw she was talking to him, and replied, "Well, hi, little lady. How old are you today?" He introduced himself as Mr. Dan, and they talked for a little bit before Nora asked for a picture with him for her birthday. He agreed and smiled for the photo. What Tara and Nora didn't know at the time was that Dan had just lost his wife of many years, and that photo was the first time he had smiled since her death. Mr. Dan still sees Nora and Tara quite regularly, and they were all interviewed for the radio show Kind World about their story. When asked why she approached Mr. Dan that day, Nora replied, "I thought he needed a friend because he was sad." Dan reflected, "Nora got me out of the loop, gave me something to live for. It's like the sun came out, you know?" That small action of little Nora saying hello to a stranger at a grocery store helped change Mr. Dan's life for the better. She saw that Dan needed someone to notice him and to be friendly to him, even though he was so desperately trying to go through it alone. As we support each other in our own communities, whether it be family, friends, or maybe neighbors we don't know quite well, it is important not to forget that sometimes the greatest gifts we can give are not the ones from the grocery store or Amazon. Instead, they are the moments when we make sure someone knows that they are not alone. It's often a lot easier to offer help to someone else than it is to ask for help yourself, however. Whether it be in a world with or without a pandemic, the natural tendency is to want to be someone who can help others, but doesn't need help themselves. But unfortunately, that's not always how things work out. There are always times in our lives where whatever journey we are on is not one we can go through alone. And when we allow ourselves to not just be there for others or to try to go through it alone, but instead allow ourselves to be cared for by our community, amazing things can happen. A great example of this is the story of Laura, a high school teacher in Arizona. Laura loves her students and loves teaching. When her students accidentally call her mom, she takes it as a badge of pride to know that her kids see her as someone who is there for them and supports them. Her care for her students is the driving force of her vocation as a teacher. But in May of 2019, tragedy struck when her 24-year-old cousin and best friend died of cancer. Laura struggled with the loss of someone so close and had to take leave from the job she loved so much. She took extended bereavement, leaving her class with a substitute teacher. What she didn't know was that while she was away, her students passed around notebooks every day, writing notes of encouragement and sympathy for their teacher, Laura. As the weeks passed, the notebooks continued to be filled with heartfelt messages, keeping their beloved teacher present in their hearts as she was away. When Laura returned, she was presented with the notebooks, filled with notes in all different colored pens and different penmanship, showing the care and support of her students during this time. While normally Laura was the one supporting and caring for her students, this time of grief in Laura's life allowed her to experience being cared for. While a small gesture, it is one that Laura still has to this day. Anytime she feels that things were slipping away from her, she still reads those notes. Laura, the caring person that she is, likely wasn't expecting the kind of support that she got from her students, but was open to receive it. Now, months later, those notebooks still help her and support her as she continues to grieve and heal from her loss. In our own lives, there will be times when we need our community, our people, to help us. This pandemic is a difficult time, and one which will not be over soon. We are all going to experience times when we need help, whether we are grieving a loss like Laura or experiencing a big change alone like Naomi did. We will all have times where we need help from someone else. Other times, we will have opportunities to see a need in someone else and help. Whether it be helping someone close to us like Ruth did, or providing help for someone we don't yet know like Nora did, there will be times when we are able and ready that we can make a difference for someone else in our community. During this time, we will both be the helper and the one being helped. And that relationship, that give and take, that is what is at the heart of community. When we are together, the physical space of church is symbolic of a space where you can come as you are, a place where the members of this community can be together and support each other. In this time of virtual church, that feeling of walking into a space that supports you and that cares for you doesn't feel the same way as it does in our building of stone. But the community and the support, that's still here. Your ministry team, your staff, your fellow members, we are all here for you, for each other. And while physically distant, we are still part of that interconnected web of creation. We may not be able to physically go where you go, but as a community, we can support each other in all the ways that we can. Physically distant, yet interconnected.